Good morning. Today we are starting a new lesson, and it is actually by Chinua Achebe. It's not a prose writing as such, it is actually a speech delivered at one of the lecture series. It is that speech which is made into a prose lesson for you. So here you find that Chinua Achebe belongs to Africa, and he has made himself a name by writing a novel about the Africans, and as such it holds much greatness also. So here you find that it is a Ashby lecture at Cambridge University delivered in the year 1993. So it is from that, it is Cambridge University, and a writer from Africa was invited over to speak in English. And Chinua Achebe was given that honor because he had reached that point where he became one of the famous African writers in English. So, when you speak about Chinua Achebe, the thing that comes to our mind is the novel that he had written, that is Things Fall Apart. He is a Nigerian novelist, he is a professor, poet, and critic. In a way, he is regarded as the father of African literature. He belongs to the tribe Igbo, and it is in the Ogidi in Nigeria. Actually, these people were converts to the Protestant Church Mission Society in Nigeria, and the missionary work was done properly. So, naturally, they were able to speak English, or they were given proper education, and they were able to write well and speak well English. So, the famous work of Achebe are these, that is, Things Fall Apart, the novel I mentioned earlier, Heir of God, A Man of the People, No Longer at Ease, and the last one, Ant Hills of Savannah. So these, through all these novels, he is putting before the world how things work in Africa from the viewpoint of an African, not as an Englishman presenting an African. There is a lot of difference, because for a long time in English novels we were seeing the Africans pictured as people who were savages, servants, and people who just do not have any opinion of their own self, and they are of no importance. They are just there in the background. This is how the English people pictured the Africans in their novels. But when an African started writing, he knew the people well, how their mind works, how things are with them, and the Englishman has no idea about that. Even if he has got some idea about it, he feels that their way, that is the way of the colonizer, is indeed the right way. So naturally, the portrayal of the colonized will be totally different. So, as a colonized, Achebe decided to write back by becoming a writer. The term write back is put in single inverted commas because it is part of the famous book The Empire Writes Back by Bill Ashcroft and the other writers. So here you find that the empire, in the sense the imperialistic nation, the people who had colonized countries like Africa and Asia, they found that they gave to the colonies their language, and English being the most famous or most popular among them. And using that English, the colonized, that is the people of Africa and people of Asia, people of India, they started writing in English, and that English is used to speak about their feelings and to oppose the colonizer. So, in a way, it is writing back. He lashed at Joseph Conrad and his Heart of Darkness, because Joseph Conrad was mentioned earlier, I think, and the famous novel of Joseph Conrad is the novel called Heart of Darkness. It's a very thin novel, thin book, in the sense that it just do not have too many pages, but it was written at one stretch. And the main character of the novel is a white man called Kurtz. And the writer, the one who is narrating the story, is a friend of Kurt's, and he is going out, or he was sent by the colonizer to go and search for Kurtz in the black continent, that is Africa. And there you find the man going in search of Kurds and finds that Kurds had sided with the Africans, and instead of uh, taking out the things or even the materials from Africa and sending it to the colonizer, you find that Kurtz had started accumulating the ivory that he had collected and storing it and not sending it to his employers. This is why the employer was eagerly or in a way frantic to search for Kurtz, because they knew that somebody is killing the elephants, but the ivory is not reaching them. And Kurtz was entrusted with it. But in a way, you find the degradation of Kurtz and how he became deranged in mind, and the African lady who was the wife of Kurtz there, and her group of people who were ready to protect him. All these were written from the viewpoint of a white man, not from the viewpoint of an African or someone who knows Africa. This is why Chinua Achebe lashed at Joseph Conrad and his novel The Heart of Darkness. His narrative technique, that is Achebe's narrative technique, is the oral method typical of Igbo culture, weaving folk wisdom into the fabric of his stories. It is, as we know, that the Englishman's narrative technique is totally different. They have their own typical narrative technique, but Chinua Achebe uses the method of the Igbo culture. The Igbo culture has the oral storytelling method. The oral storytelling method is totally different from the written one, because when you write you can elaborate on that, and you need not take into consideration much about the interest of the listeners, because it is the readers. So reading is totally different from hearing. So the oral storytelling method, which was prevalent in not just Igbo tribe, but Igbo tribal culture, but also in almost all the countries, they have their own folk culture. They have this oral storytelling method. And so naturally, that method of storytelling weaving is either in a sing-song manner or elaborating and exaggerating. And it is that technique that he uses to narrate the story in his novel. And at the same time, he weaves the folk wisdom into the fabric of his stories, which means that it is a typical African story that he presents through his novels. The storytelling technique is also typical of the African culture. He also mixes literary English, pidgin English, and colloquial English in keeping with the rhythms of Igbo speech. So when you read the novels of Chinua Achebe, you are not expected to find the proper English language being talked by the characters. You will find the literary English of the English writers, pidgin English, a mixing of English and also the language of the natives, and also the colloquial one, and the colloquial English of the Africans. All these are kept with the rhythm of the Igbo speech. The Igbo sing-song speech is that which he means by the Igbo speech, and it is that which he uses to narrate the stories in his novels. So it is a totally different type of storytelling. The characters speak not proper English but pidgin English and also colloquial English, which is an entirely different way of writing a novel, an English novel. So he also is one person who understood that these are the ways in which a person from the colony learns English. So he stressed the fact that the function of literature is to educate. So he understands that English is necessary, but at the same time he knows that the colonizer had really ill-treated the people of the colonies, but he also knows that English gives them an advantage. The language of the colonizer uh, is an advantage to the colonies, so he defended the use of English, that is the language of the colonizer, and he understood that it is a powerful medium that reaches out to a wider audience. The English speaking or reading audience is much, much wider than the Igbo speaking audience. So he understood that English as a language has much more future or much wider audience than any other language, and also the fact that he took a middle ground towards colonialism. He is writing from the colonies, he is part of the colonized, but at the same time, he has his own views regarding colonization. But at the same time, he took a middle ground. He is not all for colonization, neither is he all against colonization. He stands almost in between. He knows how the colonizer had ill-treated the colonies and ill-treated the people of the colonies, and how they had scant respect for these people. It is he rejects them, or he is totally against that. At the same time, he is not all for the English man and his way of walking, his way of dressing, or his way of behaving as if he is the Almighty. That kind of behavior also is not accepted by Chinua Achebe. He takes a middle ground in the sense that all that is good in the colonizer he takes, and all that is in the Igbo he also has it in him, and he mixes these and comes up with something good, or in a way something much, much better than anything else. You will find all these details in the pages 130 and 31. The details about Chinua Achebe's details about the being part of Igbo and being a good writer, and how he came to be a good user of English language. All these you will learn in your introduction, that is given in the pages 130 and 131. Students, please go through that, because it is good to get to know the author first and then learn more about him through his writing. So, as I told you earlier, it is a speech, it is not a written scholarly essay. And he says that he begins his speech by pointing out the strangeness of the title, because the title of the essay is The Education of a British Protected Child. The Education of a British Protected Child. From the point of view of the 1993, you will find it strange, the term British protected child, because we are living in a world where we have independence and we are free from all our colonizing, and most of the colonies were free by this time. So there is no need for people to be uh, to care much about the British aspect of being protected by the British. We are not protected by the British. We have our own country, and in the same way, Achebe also has got his own country, Africa. And so he begins his speech by pointing out the strangeness of the title, The Education of a British Protected Child. He admits that he is not a scholar if the readers are expecting one, because, mind you, this is not a written prose, it is a speech by Chinua Achebe delivered at Cambridge University. Cambridge University, as you all know, is one of the centers of learning, and it is several centuries old. Not years old, but centuries old. And if you are to get an occasion to speak there, then that means you have excelled yourself, or you have proved yourself to be a worthy speaker to be invited over to deliver a lecture in Cambridge University. And he, in the first place itself, Achebe admits that he is not a scholar if the readers are expecting one. A scholar in the sense, a person who had pursued the studies and had developed his own skills over that, and did much by reading and writing. He would, maybe he is being humble, but at the same time he says that I'm not a scholar in the proper sense of its term. He would like to be a success than a failure, he admits. Of course, that is the same for almost all human beings. We all would like to be a success rather than a failure. And you will find that he is a person who really is telling us how he came to be there as an English speaking person, or an English speaking African. He gave his application to the Trinity College, but the college turned down his application form, and because of that, he stayed home in Africa and became a novelist. He says that it is chance that he became a novelist. Most of the writers are almost like him. That is, it's you don't need too much of education or scholarship to be a writer. If you have the imagination, and if you know how to write language properly, then if you have the skill or that talent in you, then you can be a novelist. So he stayed home and he became a novelist. He did not pursue his studies in the Trinity College because his application was rejected. So that rejection, that failure, became a success in his life. He addresses the gathering at Cambridge University and says that they'll be reading a scholarly essay rather than the story of a boy's growing up in British colonial Nigeria. Because if they are expecting a scholarly essay, then they will be disappointed. They would rather read a scholarly essay, because Cambridge is supposed to be the center of scholars, and in a way, the Cambridge people are indeed people who would rather read a scholarly essay which is written well and which teases their imagination and intellect, rather than listen to the story of a boy growing up in British colonial Nigeria. Definitely, that's what he thinks, because the audience now comprised of not just English people but people from all over the world. Actually, this lesson that you are reading now is about exactly that. It is about a boy growing up in British colonial Nigeria. He just puts an end to the speculation of the audience, who are eagerly waiting for a scholarly essay or a scholarly write-up, and he now puts before them how he grew up, or a young boy grew up in British colonial Nigeria. The colonialism ended, but even then, in Nigeria, colonialism ended in the year 1963, but now he is in the year 1997. But even then, it is about, this lesson is all about a boy's growing up in British colonial Nigeria. You will find it in the pages 114 and 15, and also in the paragraphs 1, 2, and 3, first, second, and third paragraph. Again, he continues to say that nothing has got the capacity to say anything about, to sprout uh, more in the luxuriously the soil of colonial discourse than mutual recrimination, because he says that when you are under the rule of the British, you can speak a lot about the way these people acted towards your people, or the people, how the colonizer really treated the Africans, and in a way that mutual recrimination, and even the colonized people also can say, the colonizer also can say that the Africans are a good for nothing people. All these can be done. You can blame each other, but even then That is, even before the, or even more than the mutual recognition, you have something more to learn from the colonized countries. So he takes out the term British protected person. Nigeria's independence was in 1960s, ending the protection. Till that time, the people, or the people from Nigeria, a colonized country, now belongs to the British authority, and so that person from the colony is protected by Britain. This is the idea that is given there. And you will find all these details in the paragraph, fifth paragraph. It is British protected person. So here he had to wait for 3 years more for the British for the independence in 1960 in order to end this term that is connected to his name. That is British protected person. That is always there with his name. With Chinua Achebe, against that there will be the term British protected person. Whether you like it or not, it is always there. So till Nigeria's independence in 1960, he had to go with this term, and only after 1960 this protection ended, and the ending of the protection happened in the year 1960. Achebe prefers the middle ground, means with a colonial rule, that is neither for nor against. He is not for colonialism. He is also not against colonialism, because you know that nobody would like their country to be taken away from them, and they be treated like servants by this man, who these people who comes from some other country. In our own country we become slaves. That was a situation of the colonial rule. But at the same time, Achebe prefers the middle ground because there are good points regarding colonialism. Because maybe he finds an ease, and that ease is with the language. And maybe because of that, he prefers the middle ground with the colonial rule. And in order to demonstrate this point clearly, he uses the analogy of Moses from the Old Testament of the Bible. The analogy of Moses from the Old Testament of the Bible, and he mentions it in the paragraphs 6 and 7. What is the story of this Moses? You find in the term, or the story of Moses in the Old Testament of the Bible, and that is in the book called Exodus. And there you find that in Egypt, these people, the Jews, were people who came over because of Joseph, and the great thing that Joseph had done was also remembered. But even then, after some time, Joseph's people, that is the Jews, were treated like slaves. So the Egyptian king, the Pharaoh, gave an order that all the male children of the Jews should be thrown out into the river Nile as soon as they are born. And if somebody goes against this rule, then naturally that person will be punished. So all these people had to throw their newborn babe, the boys, into the river Nile, and in a way this reduced the population of the Jews. Even then they were treated as slaves. But there was one family, there was a woman who had a boy, and the boy was so good looking that she refused to let him throw into the river Nile, and in a way she protected him for 3 months. And after 3 months, she was afraid that someone will warn against her, and the child will be, anyhow, the child will be killed. And that was too much for the woman. And so she gave instructions to her eldest daughter, Miriam, and asked her to take the boy to the river. And for that she made a basket woven with the reeds, lined it with clothes, and placed the baby in the basket, and asked her to take it to the river Nile, or to the place where the Egyptian princess will come and take a bath. So Miriam went with the basket, hid beneath behind the weeds, and when she found that the princess and her maids were coming with the for the bath, she just let the basket with her baby brother float there. And when the princess saw this baby or this basket, she asked her servants to bring the basket to her and found in the basket a handsome baby boy. And the princess was really enamored by the baby, that she took the baby with her. She understood that it must be some Jewish baby, because she knew the order that was given all around by the king of the country, that is Egyptian king, and she knew that the Jews were forced to part with their male baby boys into the river. And so she took the baby. She knew that it is a Jewish baby, and took the baby with her and brought him up in the Egyptian palace with the Egyptians. Understand? So here you find that somehow or other one person, and even then the ill treatment of the Egyptians against this of the Jews really continued. The Jews were ill treated by the Egyptians. The Jews were slaves there, and this young boy grew up to be Moses, and he was there in the palace, but at the same time, he had no idea as to his real identity. He was lavished care and attention and food, but his own people were on the other side. He did not know that he belongs to the other group, not to this group. This is the analogy that Achebe uses here, because Chinua Achebe is actually like Moses, because he knows English well. He is given an English education, but at the same time, he had the feeling that he is siding with the oppressors of his own people. And this is why he uses the analogy of Moses. Moses, who lived in the palace of the Egyptian king for a long time without knowing that his own people were oppressed outside the palace by the king himself, king and his servants or his employees. So it is without knowing that he grew up for a long time. But when he grew up, like when he went outside, he understood that he is not an Egyptian or a king in the sense, but he actually belongs to the Israelites or the Jews. So there is a total difference there. So the awareness came only much later. So Achebe regards himself as the Moses who was brought up by the oppressor and without knowing the oppression of his own people. But later, once Moses comes to know of the oppression of the people, he starts fighting for them and takes sides with them and starts fighting against the oppressor who had really brought him up or adopted him. So it is under the leadership of Moses, as we all know, that the Exodus begins. That is, all the Jews from Egypt started moving away to the land that is given to them, and it is in the sense that one day they will be able to reach that land. They all start their journey, even though the Egyptians refuse to let them go, because they'll be losing valuable slaves, not just one or two, but several thousands of slaves. And without slaves, their work will not be going on. So naturally, the awareness of Moses really became the awakening of the people called the Israelites, and it is in that sense he uses the analogy of Moses. For Achebe, he understood the ways of the British, and he comes and sides with his own people, the Igbo people, and from there he starts the fighting from there. So he's telling us about his life in Nigeria as an Igbo, but at the same time educated by the English, by the British colonists, and in that sense, he learned from them the language, the mannerism, everything, but he had to retain the fact that he is an Igbo. And that is why, with the analogy, he is making it clear to us. So, what is the Igbo tribe? The Igbo tribe says the one way, the one truth, one life menace is there. And Igbo has got several sayings. For each occasion, they have one or the other saying. So, they call, the Igbo calls it bad thing and bare neck. It's a very bad thing, and with a bare neck, you have to go, and it is not safe. That's the manner in which they really explain life with the British people. So their preference is for duality, not singularity. They are people who are really flexible. If they were so stiff and formal and they opposed the British all the way through, their whole town or the whole tribe would have been destroyed. So they prefer duality because they did not believe in singularity. They did not ever believe that theirs is the only type of culture that is right. Then, wherever something stands, something else will stand beside it. This is also another quoting of the Igbo. And wherever something stands, something else will stand beside it. If you stand for something, if you uphold something, don't think that you are alone. Someone else will come and will support you. So, this is again another Igbo saying. The middle ground is neither the origin of things nor the last of things. Because from the very beginning itself, we found that Achebe was taking the middle path or the middle course, and there is always the middle way of accepting things. And it is in that sense you find it is in that sense you find a lot of facts about Chinua Achebe, and he defends taking the middle ground. The middle ground is neither the beginning of anything nor the last of things, because it is middle. Something had already gone past, something is about to come also. So you are in between. So there is a future, there is a past to fall back on, there is a future to look back to. So this is the advantage of the middle ground. That is, there is a past which you can fall back on. From the past you can learn, from the mistakes of the past, from the corrections of the past you can learn something. And there is also always the future to look back to. So that makes the middle ground something desirable. And he lists out the qualities of the middle ground. It is on page 8 and 9. You find him always thinking, or he is the one person who speaks about the qualities of the middle ground, and he speaks of the good qualities. And that is, in a way, wherever that is. The middle ground is neither the origin of things nor the last of things. It is aware of the future to heed into, and to the past to fall back on. It is home of doubt and indecision, of suspension and disbelief, of make believe, of playfulness, of the unpredictable, of irony. These are the qualities of middle ground. As he says, it is the home of doubt and indecision. Of course, when you take the middle course, there will be doubt and indecision. You will not be able to take a decision whether it will be the right decision or not, whether you can take this side or that side. That kind of indecision will be there. A suspension of disbelief. Naturally, uh, you find it very difficult to go through the things that are put before you, and naturally of make believe, things that are pretending, and you have to pretend also, and of playfulness, being humorous, and certain situations are so serious that you can't ever think of a humorous enough situation. You have to think of a middling ground and have some playfulness, and only then you will be able to approach that. Of the unpredictable, definitely the unpredictable, because even though there is a past, there is also a future to look back on. The present is almost unpredictable. And of course, there is irony. Why irony? Because you are a person who belongs to the Igbo tribe, but who is ruled by the British colonialist government. And so you are neither here nor there. So there is an irony connected to all this. It is this that Achebe emphasizes here, and it is this quality that he puts before us in order to make us understand that his situation is totally different, or his situation of being a British protected child in the Igbo tribe in Nigeria is something that people will have to understand. In a way, he is trying to make us or give an explanation as to why he is as he is. He is not totally ignoring his Igbo origin. He doesn't want to. He was born and brought up in the Igbo tribe and the language of the people. He understands that and he is brought up in that culture. But at the same time, his parents were Protestant Catholic Christians. And as such, he had learned about a new religion and also had learned a new language, that is English. And that makes him neither here nor there, the middle, like Moses. He is a Jew brought up in the Egyptian palace, while his own people are there outside, totally ignorant of his existence, maybe of his own existence, but at the same time, he is not with his own people. So he is accepted here because of the protection of the princess, and he is not out there. And once out there, his own people will start attacking him because while they are slaving, he is leading the life of a prince where he has no reason to be. So that is exactly the reason of why Achebe is finding himself. This kind of attitude is something that he had to understand properly. And from there he is speaking. He is not ignoring his own tribe or his own the culture of his own tribe. He is not accepting the standards of the British colonists nor the British, but at the same time, he had taken something good from both the culture of Igbo, the language of the British, and moving forward with that culture and reaching out to the masses out there. This is why all his novels are great successes. And Things Fall Apart is one novel which you will have to read because it makes very good reading. It's not like the usual English novels. It is written in English, of course, but it is written about the Africans and especially the Igbo tribe and how people uh, take or consider each other, not like the British who are too judgmental. And the Igbo has got a forgiving nature and the middling way, and it is that which really takes him forward.